Hey everybody. Well, welcome back. We are at the end of the week. Hope you had a good week. And everybody who turned in their tuition reaction story just got theirs back. Three people did not turn theirs in, and you got notified. And that's an F. I'm actually recording this on Thursday, so it's an F if I don't get it by Friday. Sorry. You get a 24-hour window during which, if it's turn within the 24 hours after the assignments due, you get a grade lower. But if it's after 24 hours, it's an F. Okay. So just remember that. I know we move fast in this class, and it's just the way it is. Okay. It's just like the class is doing very well overall. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing and everything, but just really have to keep that in mind. Okay. The deadlines. All right. And we don't have a ton left to do, to be honest with you. So, I mean, what I thought I'm gonna do is talk about the third assignment, which is a tuition reaction assignment, and also the megalomania assignment, and then also please keep in mind that there's readings. I asked you guys to read chapter 17 and 19, which actually relate to the megalomania assignment. It's interesting. Like a couple of you have said to me, like, you don't test on the readings. What? I don't get it. Well, I can show you why I don't test on the readings. I mean, I feel like you're all adults. I feel like why waste time on testing on the readings? And you should be clear that like we don't have to do any of the assignments that are in the book, no workbook. I'm getting a pinwheel right now. I hope you can hear me. I'm actually trying to share the screen. Anyway, I don't, do workbook, none of the in-book assignments, anything like that. But I can tell when maybe somebody's not reading, and I'm sorry I have to say this. But you know, right here. Hi, Rachel. Another student brought this up, and also maybe not watching the videos either. Because if you're not watching the videos and you're still writing like this, you're not reading either. Okay. Look at this gigantic quote right here. Now, is this something you would, if you saw this in a story or something like that, would you want to read that? I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on anybody here, but I am not a fan of this. Okay, I'm not a fan of this form of writing. This is not actually what we're going for. We're trying to be reporters. Most of the time, when actually you see a story, there actually are not these types of quotes in them. They're typically just like, just really just um mostly the actual reporter is actually doing the writing. Okay. Another student, Rachel Lake, brought this up. There's really no substance to that. Okay. The recent 6%, and it's all in the quote, is really tough to handle with a heavy course load. It's almost like it's kind of like it goes on a long time. It's a paragraph. There's no break in there. We're already stressful even with this financial aid with the higher risk it makes me harder. I mean, what you could do is you actually can go into this quote and you can actually like um basically use your own writing to make it sound better. She said it's hard to handle with a heavy course load. Look at this, I'm already going into the second sentence. Course load and extracurriculars. Well, okay, and then I want to know, like, we're not going into much depth here. Does she actually like have like extracurriculars she's involved in? Okay. She said, I don't know if Rachel is or not, but she said she's involved in the blank club. You get relate somebody's personal experience. Um, she gets I didn't remember to attribute to a financial aid, she said. We're already down here, by the way. Okay. Um, and then I mean you could just like cut out stuff because a lot of this stuff is almost like it's not Rachel's fault, but it's like redundant. Okay. Um, she said it's just too hard. That's it. Okay. Much more efficient writing, much clearer the whole thing. Okay. Um, you know, that's what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for something, and I've got to give credit. I mean, I handed around one student's, but I got another one right here. Um, handed out Ananias' story before, and Ananias got an A. Congratulations. But here's another one from Niati. Um, okay, so maybe the paragraphs may be a little bit long, but that's fine. I'm actually fine with this because these are actually like really good anecdotes right here. Okay. Um, basically got your sharp lead. Rutgers students expressed distress about the recent 6% tuition hike. It might be good to maybe just not just say they expressed disconsent, but just maybe say a little bit more, say something overall reflects the whole story. Give the reader something to go on a little bit more. I mean, I know I'm saying like speaking spare parts here, but just basically you want to give them a little bit to feed on. Okay, so maybe say it's too much of a burden on them or something, or on their family or something like that. Okay. And then what you do is you break it down into individual sections after that. Students are complaining about the current struggle to balance academic social life, especially when you have to work part-time and pay their tuition. Okay. And we got Amin, so you say it, Mir, an incoming sophomore in computer science, complained about having to work two different part-time jobs. This is the personal story I'm talking about. His parents are paying for the other half of tuition, but he's continuing to struggle for his family, and she needs a little attribution here, but it's basically getting into that one personal experience. It also makes the story much more relatable. Okay. And then, to think my family is already struggling to pay for my education is upsetting to me. Is about to get worse. That's a good direct quote. It's emotion, it's colorful, it's like sharp. It really kind of almost like cuts at the bone. Okay. That's a good direct quote. And then we go to another transition. Some students believe that the lack of improvement in wages and facilities do not. Now, I've heard this from a bunch of people, and many people actually did a good job like following this up, saying, okay, like they would complain, they would have students complaining about the cost of the football program and that sort of thing. But I would say, okay, well, tell me then, like, show me how does that impact them? You know, I mean, if I had you guys in room 114A, and which is where this class in person is usually held, you'd be looking at these computers, these Dell computers, and saying like, what do we need these for? I mean, basically they have these computers that look like they're from The Office, Dunder Mifflin, if you've ever watched that TV show, and they just sit there and unused and they're crap. Meanwhile, like I teach a class like digital news reporting where I actually teach them video and things like that, and the video equipment sucks. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. How does that affect you personally? Well, she has that here. As I say, nurse, another student at the university believes there are multiple issues the university has not fixed yet, such as professors' lower wages, overcrowded classrooms, and outdated facilities. Thank you. And believe me, I was a student here. I know exactly what she's talking about. She said that she is sacrificing her time with her friends to pay for this undeveloped education. Yeah, that's for sure. And then she says, then this probably should have say aggravated. Well, she has this attribution, which is aggravating to many. There's no transparency. Very good stuff. Okay, very healthy anecdotes there. That's a readable story. That's a relatable story, and that's what I'm looking for here. Okay, maybe I'll pass that one around too. Okay. Um. So yeah. So that's basically like what I'm looking for here. I mean, again, if you look at maybe like the typical story, um, I didn't show you guys this. I mean, we're gonna be doing feature stories as soon as next week. That's actually, and then I'm also gonna be doing like a major assignment. That'll be like our last assignment. But anyway, the feature, even if you look at like a feature story, like a story that's actually has a little more creativity in it, it's a little softer and that sort of thing. Um, you'll even see that they don't rely on like these very long quotes. Okay, and I'm just kind of off the cuff, scanning through. Um, let's see here. Hmm. Fake news still has a home on Facebook. What does this say right here? Yeah, this is essentially like a feature story. We'll be talking about this next week. So tune in next week. I'll be talking about the feature assignment, and that's actually where you have a lead that actually goes several paragraphs long. Okay, but you can see like right here on the morning of blah blah blah, Christopher Blair's fake news empire was humming along. Mr. Blair was earning this much money, but a mob of Trump supporters, blah blah blah. Now you can see, look at this, see, but but a lot of it's just like paraphrased stuff about this guy Blair and his Facebook. Apparently, like he's a guy is involved with a culture war, and he's basically like dashed off. I mean, that was a conservative. Basically, he's like basically kind of helped defend people like Trump and that sort of thing. and fight back against like what they consider liberal news by posting just crap. And you can see there's just not a lot of direct quotes in here. And I guess they're writing about a creep, but they're trying to show, I guess, the softer side of the creep. I don't know why he does it. Sometimes it's good to like find out why people do things, I guess. Okay. You can see there's just no direct quotes. So it's all about the writing. Okay. In the second half of the semester, I say it's more about the reporting, the writing, but it's the reporting that really drives the writing. Okay. So if you dig out information from people, you get information from them, relatable experiences, you won't have to worry about, and I know I have a 500 word minimum, right? But I mean, if you have a robust 450, that's great. But I can tell when a story is lacking because there was this one story I just graded. It was probably about 350 words, but it had like no anecdotes, nothing. It was just like somebody saying something and then very short and then a quote, and that's it. And somebody saying something else and a quote. That's it. Okay. Um, all right. So that's that rewrite. Okay, and actually I posted that. And that rewrite also has example of I passed around a story. I hope you got it. I emailed it. I put it as an announcement. It was a very good job from Ananiah. And I posted that actually on the rewrite entry. Remember, there's actual rewrite entries. Okay, there's Ananiah right here. Example of a story that worked. This is the rewrite entry. Okay, this will be due a week from yesterday. I'm posting this on Friday, or sorry, week from 2 days ago. So it's due in 5 days. Okay. It's the Rutgers, it's reaction to the students' reaction. Sorry, it's the rewrite of the students' reaction to the 6% tuition hike. Okay. Remember, but the focus on the students' reaction. Okay. See, somebody's already submitted something. So okay. And then you'll have a rewrite on this next assignment too. Now this is the tricky one. By the time you're getting this video, okay, you really should have like made some effort, I would say, to either reach out to me, to Bill Borden, who's going to be serving as the this is a fake story, okay? That's an exercise, and Bill's going to be playing the role of company spokesman for this made-up company called Megalomania. By now, you should have either reached out to me the way to find out what you think maybe the material for the lead should be in the press release, and or reached out to Bill to get the additional information. Okay. So this is really like building a story from scratch. All right. And as I talked about when I introduced the video earlier in the week, you're rewriting a press release and turning it into a story. Okay. So what Bill's going to be doing again, he's going to be actually like once you figure out what that lead is or what you think it's going to be, and a couple of you, thank you, about 3 or 4 of you have actually emailed me to ask me what they think the lead is, and you can continue doing that until this story is due on Monday, but I'll be around on the weekend. Okay. But anyway, what you want to do is, you want to, try to figure out what that lead is. And remember that this story is just more than about, a restructuring. That restructuring is actually really like minor news in the whole grand scheme of things. It's really about this one thing that happened. And it really, and I'll tell you this much, it happened for many outrageous reasons because of some really bad behavior that happened. Okay. And again, it goes to the whole thing I was saying earlier in the week. I mean, it speaks to a company's reputation, a company's ethics, when they have like maybe somebody who's running a company who's acting badly. I'll say that much. That's a big hint, right? Bronson got fired. But anyway, I'm sorry, resigned, not fired. So anyway, I just gave something away to check to see if you're watching. Anyway, so you want to find out like why he did it. Or he threw a party that was crazy. Oh, just gave something else away. Okay. And it says it right here. As you talk about in the video, let's talk about in the video, the first paragraph ain't the lead. This is what reporters do. They go beyond what's handed to them in a silver platter, report and prioritize the information that matters to the readership. Okay. And once you find the lead in the theme, you email Bill, be playing the role of the company's spokesperson. Okay. And then you have to watch. Now, this video is what I introduced to you in the lecture. So, I mean, this is the actual video of my talk with Bill. It's a couple of years old, but I think it's still relevant. very relevant. Anyway, but you can rewatch that again. It's right there. It's and like I said, it's also in the prior lecture video. Okay. But basically the instructions are there in this video, basically what to do. So you basically handed this assignment right here, okay, where you're handed this press release. And the idea here again is that you're not just gonna like take somebody's word for it. And obviously in the company, I've had people like I've done this before, I admit. I've had people like try to treat this as some sort of a scandal, that the scandal being that the company is trying to hide it or something like that. Well, no, that's not what they do. And that's what I'm going to talk about in chapter 17 and 18. One big reason why I do this assignment is because in the second half of the semester, I try to introduce you to, you know, um, basically, um, people who will tell you things, but they're not necessarily like, what's benefit to the public. Your job is to basically provide the information that's beneficial to the public. Okay. It's their job to basically write for the company's interests. So that might even mean like just basically like it's called spin doctoring, basically spinning it so that it looks like the company's doing something great. The company's doing something that's going to help people, help their stocks, everything else. Okay. Um, but what it does is it effectively buries what may be the more interesting thing for the general public as a whole. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to go through this and find like really there's like really two paragraphs to really kind of address that. Okay. And and then basically take it from there and then go to Bill and say, look, I found this thing. This sounds like more interesting to me. Tell me about what happened. Why did this happen? That's the big question. Why did this happen? Okay. Something actually I meant to call up earlier, but as I said, um, chapters 17 and 19 deal with public affairs reporting and public relations. And the whole idea of like why I talk about public relations and everything again is because this is actually the majority way you actually talk to people you talk who are involved with like beyond like the street reporting. This is like the people when you have to talk to police, when you have to talk to have to talk to maybe like a company or something like that sort of thing. Dealing with like a big entity, you have usually have somebody, and understandably so, they want to have their message come out clearly. They have a job to do is to protect their company's interests, no matter how what they're doing is bad or not, but they have to have somebody basically out there speaking for them. Okay, because maybe something they don't want something that's said that's might be like misinterpreted. They got to say something that they could be sued for, that sort of thing. So when you go through actual like watch one of the ways that police departments typically communicate is actually through um the the Facebook. And my hometown of Point Pleasant Borough Police, this is actually where they go. And now it's your job to basically kind of look through it. Now, there's some of the stuff they may post, especially if you're like a community newspaper, a local paper, or where I used to work at Patch, they'll basically, right. Well, we want to write about the good news, the stuff that's happening, and maybe like mention the big fundraisers and things like that, and that's fine. But sometimes you'll maybe you might see something that might be like, okay, well, what's really not necessarily something bad, but there's something more to say about here. Okay, like the report about burglaries or something like that. And you say to yourself, okay, well, there's a couple of burglaries in the street, but they might leave out how many. So you want to find out how many. So you have to actually go beyond what's posted here on Facebook and actually call them up or email them and say, okay, how many and where were they or something. Okay. Um, I mean, we look at right here, it says never pass stopped vehicles at a crosswalk. Motorists who fail to stop for pedestrians who take over, oh, they always put up stuff like this. So there's not always a hidden agenda in here, but sometimes there is, okay? So motorists who fail to stop for pedestrians or who overtake and pass vehicles that are stopped for pedestrians within crosswalks are subject to conviction of the law, blah, blah, blah. Well, it makes me think like, okay, so what happened there? Is there like a rash of people like crossing in the wrong spot? I mean, that would be like interesting to know. I mean, it seems like that's actually been happening. a lot lately. I just, even though anybody who drives down College Avenue knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so yeah, I mean, has there been like a rash of that in Point Pleasant Borough or something like that? Should we be like wary of that? Should we be more careful of that? Who's doing that? Have people been arrested for that or something like that? I don't know if he got arrested for that, but all right. So you got to really like kind of dig deeper beneath what's here. Okay. There's actually a case, and I'm sorry, I meant to bring this up earlier, but I'm going to call it up. You may remember the Ahmaud Arbery case. Happened some years back. Now, there was a black man who was actually running through a neighborhood near Atlanta, and actually, let's see, Rutgers, and what happened was they let me just get here we go. What happened was he was running through the neighborhood, and what's this redacted? Okay, there we go. I think this actually, or is this where I have it? Okay. I'm sorry, just let me call up the right place. If you look at the initial police report on the matter, you would think that like, and I mean, I'm not necessarily blaming the police here, but you would think that like this guy was running through the neighborhood and there were people in town who basically said, we got to do something, and they did the right thing, maybe. But what we found out basically was that actually there was a lot more involved. And this is what happens a lot of times on these initial police reports is that they don't get, and then, maybe they don't have all the information at the time. I'm sorry, I'm just having a really hard time finding this. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here. Okay. Okay, so anyway, he was running through a neighborhood. Um and so what they did was they actually did charge, I believe it was one or two people, but there were more people who were involved. There were more people who were causing trouble here that led to Ahmaud Arbery's death. This man was actually just jogging through a neighborhood, you know. And what it says here in the police report is basically, these witnesses, they call them. They're witnesses. Okay, yeah, witnesses. Saw him running through the neighborhood and thought that he was essentially a suspect in a burglary that happened fairly recently or something like that. And my guess is because he was black and they thought, oh, he must be that. Geez, this is actually I'm sorry. I should have been prepared for this. Charges redacted. Oh, here we go. This is it. I'm sorry. This is the initial police report. Okay, it's redacted. Nice. That means that they actually cut out parts so the public can't see. Here is the Glenn County Police Department. Okay. And now look at these people right here. You see them listed right here. Ahmaud Arbery was the one who died, unfortunately. Like I said, he was jogging. He was identified as a witness. There's only one person identified as a suspect. One. Okay. These two people, keep these names in mind. William Bryan and Gregory McMichael. They're identified as witnesses. Okay. So that's how they're identified, right? And this is how what they're believed to be at the time. Okay. So it says the police responded to basically this intersection of Satia Drive, Holmes Drive, in reference to shots being fired. While en route, they were advised that the shots were fired on a male who was bleeding out. On arrival, he observed Officer Winslow setting up a perimeter. This guy McMichael stated there have been several break-ins in the neighborhood, and they caught this guy supposedly on a surveillance video. That's what they said. McMichael stated that he was in his front yard and saw the suspect from the break-ins hauling ass. He was running, jogging down Satia Drive. Travis and said, "Travis, the guy is running down the street. Let's go." All right, vigilantes. So they go out there. They didn't know the male was armed or not. Of course, they always say that, right? Of course, they always suspect it's so guilty before innocent. They suspect the black man is going to have a gun, which is these people who get arrested and now lately, especially with iPhones and everything else, that's the direction they're heading in because their freaking ignorance is coming forward here, and they just make assumptions, and then people end up dead, which is unfortunate. But like Michael stated that Travis got into the truck and drove down Satia Drive. They saw the man running down the street. And this guy Roddy, remember that we saw his name is mentioned as a witness. He's then came in his truck. Um, and they came in, and then basically they claim that they yelled stop, stop. They pulled they shouted this at the man again, supposedly. The guy tried to grab the shotgun and then he was shot and killed. Okay. For whatever reason, we don't know. The guy had no gun on him, but they shot and killed him. And that's all they had at the time. Okay. Now look, if you're actually like, I'm not blaming the reporters either. I mean, a lot of the reports that came out initially, this is all they had, right? This is all that was there mentioned and everything. Okay. So you pretty much have to go with, you can, but you don't necessarily have to stop that day with the reporting. What you do is you follow up. Okay. Much like with this megalomania release, you might be just able to get the information that's on the release for that first day, but then once you start digging into it, you find out that, oh, well, actually a lot more happened than we initially suspected. Okay. Um, so what happened was, I am what happened was, as what happens in many times, is that there was a video. Okay. And the video came out and that changed everything. And it showed that there were more people involved than just this one guy. Okay. And I'll show you like exactly why there was more than one person involved. And I want you to listen to it if you can. I know it's on this video here, so you're hearing it secondhand. So this is actually the guy Roddy. Let me stop it. It's the guy Roddy. They were remember this guy Roddy mentioned they called him a witness. He's driving his truck to the scene because they're all like, "Come on out, we got to do something. There's a guy with a gun, blah, blah, blah," even though he didn't have one. Do something, right? So he comes out, and this guy, listen, watch the camera move. Let's listen to that again. Yes, if you've never heard of the sound of a gun being cocked before, that's a sound of a gun being cocked. Okay. Guy's ready to do damage, to do violence. Okay. And a jury heard that and said, this guy was out to cause trouble too. You know, these people were out to hurt this guy. These people were out to probably do harm to a black person. So not cool. And this video told the story right there. And then once you actually see the actual shooting take place, you can see that you can see. I'm sorry, let me get a little closer. So they go up and look at this. They got a freaking truck with a guy standing on it. You can see he's probably just really trying to defend himself. There's no like violence. There's no like break-ins going on like that. You hear the gunshot. He's just trying to get away. All right. So that said everything right there. Okay. And then what happened eventually was that they found, thanks to that video, and that's what happens so many times. Thanks to that video, um, you find out that actually there was a lot more involved. And then what happened was there were more people indicted, and they were charges. Yeah, I had actually the charges up before. So then remember who was actually like described as a witness before? So suddenly everything changed because of that. And actually, yes, this had it right here. Travis McMichael. Actually, if you look at let's see here. Yeah. So initially the police report had Travis McMichael as the only suspect, right? Had this guy was a guy who was actually on scene too to help out. Okay. And this is the guy who was driving. Sorry, am I right? Yeah, this is the guy who was actually driving this scene who cocked his gun. Okay. And look what happens at the end. Travis McMichael, guilty on everything. Greg McMichael was on the scene, not guilty of malice murder, but guilty of felony murder. Okay. And the guy who cocked his gun, guilty of felony murder, guilty of felony murder, guilty of felony murder. Okay. Because he aided and abetted the crime and he also like basically distracted the police from doing their job. Okay. So you just can't like take people's word for it all the time. You find out that actually, maybe people are up to no good or something like that, So let's look at the chapters in the book. Um, Public affairs reporting basically talks about, getting information from these different sources and how to get it. Public affairs reporting actually deals a lot with actually the going to like the official sources, like the local governments, who actually were the ones that actually like we just did this story about the tuition hike, but I kept saying to some people that it's not about the tuition hike, it's about the reaction. Okay, but if you were actually to report about the tuition hike initially, the board of governors is the governing body that actually runs the university. So you have to actually like cover these things, and you have to like you have to deal with their essentially like their spin on like why they have to do certain things and why they have to raise tuition 6% and stuff like that. These governments are the ones that actually like really covered by reporters the most because they're the ones that have control over how much money you pay to live, and it's not just like tuitions, but like parents or guardians or whatever have to pay taxes on. Maybe you already have a house or something like that, or maybe you already have income tax on your check because of your job, so you have to pay that amount of money, and that goes to pay for certain things like streets and stuff like that. But it's the reporter's job, and it also it goes to like pay for things like protecting the streets from people and also making sure police officers are doing their jobs and everybody, and I mean everybody, is safe. So it's reporters' jobs to find out, are they actually doing that? Okay. And not just take their word for it when they hand out a press release saying that, oh, well, this guy is a suspect and these other guys are witnesses. It's your job to actually essentially question it and say, like, okay, what's really going on behind there? Okay. When there's a crime or an accident that happens, and I'd be doing this if we were doing it in person. I always do this thing where I show this, I make up this accident that happened where somebody runs into a bakery shop, but and everybody initially makes it the driver out to be at fault and everything, but then what comes out in the whole story is that the driver drove down a one-way street because the one-way street didn't have a one-way street sign on it. Okay, so then it essentially becomes the town's fault. The town, I mean, it's a driver's fault, but it's also the town's fault, for not putting up a one-way street. So it's your job to kind of like see like why certain things are happening. Report that the accident happened. Tell people that like, you know, why it happened, who got hurt, all those things matter to people. Okay. But you also want to find out, okay, if it happened at an intersection, maybe you want to follow up and say, like, is that an intersection where a lot of those things that things happen? They bring up, well, actually, like when they bring up the courts and the police and this things like that, they bring up some of the recent cases, like I don't know if they bring up Ahmaud Arbery, I don't remember, but they bring up like George Floyd and that sort of thing. And how everything was basically spun a certain way initially. And then we found out that it was actually maybe quite the opposite of what happened. Public health. Obviously, we had to rely on things like COVID, and we had to rely on certain people. Maybe I remember the New York governor became very popular at the time. He's very unpopular now and had to resign, but he turned out to be a pervert. But anyway, I'm just saying. Um, but this is how we had to find out information about this. And but again, you have to find out sometimes like what's really going behind the scenes. You have a lot of times there's people like Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, who basically is a whack job now, but he was the hero of 9/11 at the time. But then you look back and you find out there were certain things going on that maybe he profited from and things like that, things that were happening behind the scene, maybe things that could have been done better, at the time. You know, the way that the police were handling things, the way the city was handling things, especially the way they were handling the environment, because of all the horrible like air that was in the area at the time of 9/11 in Lower Manhattan. I think things could have actually been done a lot better. But Giuliani at the time was like viewed as like this hero, but you can't really like take his word for it. You have to kind of go behind the scenes and see like, is everything really being handled to the best of their ability? And that's essentially what a reporter's job is. Okay. And when I say journalism, public relations, essentially that's what they have to cover themselves, is somebody to actually usually actually like do the talking for them. Now, in the case of like Andrew Cuomo from a couple years ago, 4 years ago, and Giuliani from 23 years ago, I mean, they acted as like their own spokespeople, that sort of thing. So then that actually helped kind of build their credentials as heroes, right? Um, all right, but that's not always like the case again. Again, sometimes you have to kind of go beyond what's right there in front of your face. This basically talks about how like the press release becomes press release is really kind of like a tool of control. And actually a lot of reporters actually prefer that way than the old way, which is we used to you get information over the phone or we had to go to a press conference, and they still have press conferences and that sort of thing, but that was like the only way we could get information was by doing that. But you really have to be careful with that because again, it's like while it's great to have this kind of information like right in front of you on your plate and that sort of thing, letting you know, but you have to really like make sure that like again that what you're being told is the actual truth of what is happening. Or as Bob Woodward, the famous Watergate reporter, once said, reporter's job is to get to the closest version of the truth as possible. Okay. So, that means like you got to find out what's going on inside the room as much as possible. It doesn't, I mean, this right here, protecting kids from self advertising and digital media, isn't necessarily a controversial thing. Okay. And it's good that they're putting this thing out, but you can see it's actually written in a way that's actually kind of like not very journalistic. It's like long graphs and that sort of thing. So you have to like put, that's why you have to use your own words to basically describe actions and information that's happening and being released. Okay. Is that you have to actually like, write the story and interpret it so everybody can understand. Okay. Um, but anyway, so and that's why you have to like get that control back. It's great to give you the press release, and maybe like usually like 7, 8 times out of 10 it has most of the information you need. But again, a lot of times they just kind of put that spin on it that's like totally like out of the public's interest. Sometimes they write it in a way it's just like really uh very hard to comprehend. Okay. um it's an important component of a practitioner's job is preparing for three types of interviews. As representative of their client, a PR person must be up to date on everything about the organization. Practitioners must also prepare their client's CEO and others to speak to the media, and also the right press releases. This is what they do. Okay, the PR person must interview key people within the organization. Okay. Cyber shopper. I mean, just right here, they're trying to let people know, hey, it's a great day to shop on Cyber Monday. But again, it's written with these long paragraphs that are like really hard to read, and you have to really like turn it into like a readable story. Okay. And that's what I'm asking you to do with the megalomania assignment. Okay. I mean, it's good to have, I mean, I always had somebody say to me, to like, okay, actually, Bill Borden would say this to you. Actually, number one job PR person is like really just like be as upfront as possible, while also protecting the company's interests. Okay. You don't want to lie, is what he says. Of course, they spin it so that it kind of goes, maybe it veers away from the truth a little bit, but the absolute truth. But they basically like, just don't like ruin your credibility by lying and making the situation even worse. Okay. Because then it would be like a legitimate cover up. Okay. Um, okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm asking you to read chapter 17 and 19 about that. You can please, we can talk more about that coming week or so. All right. All right. So that's all I got today. Let me stop the share here. Sorry, just give me a second here. Okay. That's all I got today and everything, and I appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, okay, so just remember what you got to do. We have the megalomania assignment, which is again a rewrite of the press release on that's due Monday, and then we have the rewrite of the sorry, his student reaction to the tuition hike. That'll be due on Wednesday. Nice job on the leads assignment, by the way. Nice rewrites, the whole thing. I appreciate that. If you had some people still wrote 2 sentences. I was asking for just a 1 sentence lead. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, and by the way, and when you're given a lot of information, really got to narrow things down to one. And I always like talk about number 7 on that worksheet, if you want to look back on that. The one that talked about the Easter Bunny. Yeah, again, I don't weight like certain numbers over others or something like that, but if you're like missing a key component, I'm not going to give you an A, okay? And in that one, I mean, they mentioned a bunch of things that's actually hard to leave out. It was an attempted murder. It was a person in a wheelchair. Somebody was set on fire. All this stuff would have made legitimate news, that sort of thing. But all those things are actually not as uncommon as you might think. Okay. Those things are actually like happen more than maybe 100 times or something like that. But how many times does it happen because somebody ate a chocolate Easter bunny? Okay. That's what you got to think of. And how many times? Once. Okay. Can you actually really name another time when that actually happened? And a chocolate Easter bunny, not just chocolate, but a chocolate Easter bunny. Okay. I mean, we not try to laugh at these things, that sort of thing, but it is what they call like news of the weird. So that's what that's the truth you're trying to get at, is you're trying to get down and ask questions to get to that truth, the closest absolute thing to the truth as possible. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks very much. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks very much.